He told me he loved me, but then gave me the ultimatum. I had to choose between the man who actually saw me and the life I thought would save me.
Hi, I'm Tijana, but everybody's always called me Tija. I'm 26 now, and I was in escorting for almost 3 years. I grew up in Budva, right on the Adriatic, where the summers are crazy with tourists, and the winters feel like the whole town just goes quiet. My parents had this small apartment they rented out to visitors. From the time I was little, I was helping, changing sheets, cleaning bathrooms, smiling at guests, translating when they didn't speak the local language. I actually liked it. I was good at talking to people. Everybody said I had this bright energy, you know? I was the girl who always wanted to be somewhere else, but in a hopeful way. I used to watch the flight attendants at the airport when my dad would take me there sometimes, and I'd think, that could be me one day, uniform, traveling, seeing the world. Or working in a nice hotel somewhere, not just cleaning rooms, but actually managing things. That dream kept me going. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor either. At least that's what I told myself. My mom worked hard, always cleaning or cooking for guests. My dad, he was the one who talked big. He'd promise we were going to expand, buy another apartment, have a real business. I believed him for a long time. I was that kind of kid. Open, trusting, always laughing. I had friends, I went out, I danced at the beach clubs during the season. Boys liked me, and I liked the attention, but I was never wild. I just wanted something bigger than the same old tourist season every year. Then I turned 17, and everything cracked. The bank took the apartment. Turns out my dad had been gambling for years, losing more than he ever let on. One day, we were packing our stuff and moving into this tiny rented room where you could hear the neighbors fighting through the walls. My mom cried for weeks. I tried to be strong for her, but inside I was terrified. I kept thinking, this can't be my whole life, cleaning after strangers forever, stuck in the same town. That fear pushed me. Right after high school, I started working as an animator in the hotels during the season. You know, the person who organizes games by the pool, does silly shows at night, keeps the tourists happy. I was good at it. Guests loved me. I'd flirt a little, make them laugh, earn decent tips. The money wasn't amazing, but it felt like the first step toward getting out. I was saving every euro I could for English courses, maybe some tourism certification, anything that could get me a job abroad. Italy, Spain, wherever. I just wanted to go. I had this boyfriend for a while, a local guy, but it didn't last. He was fine with things staying small. I wasn't. I remember sitting on the beach at night after work, looking at the lights across the water and promising myself I'd leave before I turned 25. I didn't want to become one of those women I saw every winter, tired, stuck, cleaning the same apartments year after year. Life still felt normal back then, you know? I'd come home exhausted from animating all day, eat something quick with my mom, scroll through pictures of beautiful hotels in Dubai or Santorini, and fall asleep dreaming about plane tickets in new cities. I was 20, full of plans, and I really believed I was smart enough to make them happen. I had no idea how fast things could change. The season ended, and suddenly the work dried up. That's when it started getting hard. I'd go weeks with almost no shifts, just occasional help at one of the smaller hotels. The money I thought I was saving disappeared fast. Rent for our little room, food, my mom's medicine when her back acted up from all the years of cleaning. I remember one night I came home after a long day handing out towels by the pool, and my dad was sitting there with that look again. He'd been drinking. He started talking about one big opportunity like he always did, but I could see my mom's face. She was done believing him. I tried to stay out of it, but you can't really hide in one room. The arguments got louder. Small things turned into big fights. I'd go for walks at night just to get away from the tension. Winter in Budva is depressing. The tourists leave, the wind blows cold off the sea, and everything feels smaller. I kept applying for jobs. Anything in tourism, reception, even cleaning if it paid steady. Most places wanted experience or perfect English or connections I didn't have. I'd get my hopes up for an interview and then nothing, or they'd hire someone else. Each rejection felt heavier than the last. I was 20, working whenever I could, but the savings account I kept in my head kept shrinking. I started skipping meals sometimes so my mom could eat better. I told her I wasn't hungry. She knew I was lying, but we both pretended. My friends were moving on. One got a job in a hotel in Kotor, another was talking about going to Germany. I felt stuck, like I was watching everyone else's life start while mine was just paused. The worst part was the fear that this was it, that I'd be 30, still in that same rented room, still smiling for tourists every summer, still waiting for something better that never came. I'd lie in bed at night scrolling through Instagram, seeing girls my age in nice uniforms at airports or working on cruise ships, and I'd feel this ache in my chest. Not jealousy exactly, just this heavy disappointment in myself. Then came the off season, when even the small gigs got scarce. I was exhausted all the time, running on coffee and hope. One evening, a regular guest from one of the hotels, this older foreign guy who always stayed in Budva for business, pulled me aside after I helped with his group. He was friendly, always tipped well. He said something like, "A smart girl like you could make real money if you're open to company sometimes." He didn't push, just planted the idea and walked away. I laughed it off at first, but that night it kept turning in my head. Not because I wanted to, but because the numbers weren't adding up anymore. Rent was due, my mom needed new glasses, and I had zero idea how I was going to make it through the next few months, let alone save for those courses I kept dreaming about. I didn't say yes, not then, but something inside me shifted. I started thinking about it more than I wanted to. Not as a plan, just as this quiet, scary possibility that maybe there was a faster way out. I hated myself for even considering it, but the fear of staying was starting to feel bigger than the fear of whatever company meant. I still thought I could find another way. I really did. But the cracks were there, and they were getting wider every week. I tried everything else first. I really did. I spent weeks sending out more applications, even for jobs I was overqualified for. I asked around at every hotel I'd ever worked at. I swallowed my pride and called distant relatives who sometimes helped with tourist groups. Nothing. The replies were always the same. Maybe next season, or we'll keep your CV on file. My savings were basically gone. The rent was late again, and I could see my mom trying not to worry about it. My dad was barely around, which somehow made it worse. Every night I'd lie there thinking, there has to be another way. I even considered borrowing money from friends, but I knew they didn't have it either. I looked into moving to a cheaper place up north, but that would mean leaving my mom and giving up on the tourism work I actually knew. It all felt like I was running in circles. The fear of being stuck forever was louder than anything else in my head. Then that same guest came back to the hotel. He was polite about it, never creepy. He just said if I ever wanted to make some real money by spending time with him and a couple of his friends, dinners, conversation, nothing I wasn't already good at, he could help. He mentioned a number that made my stomach drop. Enough to cover rent for months. Enough for those courses. Enough to finally start moving toward leaving. I said no at first. I told him I wasn't that kind of girl. I walked away angry, mostly at myself for even listening. For days, I kept refusing the idea in my head. I cleaned rooms for almost nothing. I smiled through tours while my shoes had holes in them. I told myself I was better than this, stronger. But the bills kept coming and the silence in our little room got heavier. I started bargaining with myself. Just once, just enough to get ahead. Then I stop and never look back. I told myself it wasn't really selling anything. It was company. I was good with people. I was already performing every day for tips. This would just be more. The lie felt comforting because it gave me hope. One afternoon, he messaged me again. I stared at my phone for a long time. My hands were shaking. I thought about my mom's tired face, about another winter with no prospects, about that dream of getting out that was slowly dying. I hated myself for even considering it, but I also couldn't see any other door opening. I typed back. My heart was pounding so hard I felt sick. I said yes. I remember the day so clearly. He texted me the address of an apartment building in the newer part of Budva, one of those modern ones with the big balconies overlooking the sea. I spent almost an hour trying on different outfits, trying to look nice, but not like I was trying too hard. My hands wouldn't stop shaking while I put on makeup. I told my mom I was going out with a friend from the hotel. The lie tasted bad, but I said it anyway. The taxi dropped me off in front of this glass building that still had construction signs up. I took the elevator to the fourth floor. My heart was beating so loud I could hear it in my ears. When I knocked, he opened the door right away. He was smiling, wearing a nice button-up shirt, smelled like expensive cologne. "Tija, come in. You look beautiful," he said in that thick accent. The apartment was big for Budva standards. White furniture, big windows, a bottle of wine already open on the table. There was another man there too, older, quieter. They explained it was just dinner and company for now, that they liked to relax with someone young and fun after long business meetings. They poured me a glass of wine. I sipped it even though I barely drink. We talked about normal things, the weather, the tourists, my work at the hotels. It felt almost like the animations I did, except my stomach was in knots the whole time. There were long silences where I didn't know what to say. I kept smiling, trying to be charming like I did with guests. They asked about my dreams, and I told them about wanting to work abroad. They nodded like they understood. After some time, the other guy left. It was just the two of us. The intimate part happened kind of naturally after that. I kept telling myself it was just a job, that it would be over soon. I tried to stay out of my head. When it was done, he was polite, almost gentle. He didn't make it weird. Afterward, he handed me an envelope. I didn't count it right there. I just put it in my bag. He called me a taxi and even waited with me downstairs. "You did great," he said. "I'll message you again if you're interested." I just nodded. The ride home was the worst part. The streets looked the same, but everything felt different. I kept staring at my hands in my lap. When I got back to our room, my mom was already asleep. I quietly washed my face, changed clothes, and lay down on the bed. The envelope was still in my bag. I didn't open it that night. I just kept thinking that something inside me had shifted, and there was no going back to the girl I was before that apartment door. At first, it felt like I'd won the lottery. The money came so easy compared to smiling by the pool for 12 hours straight. After that first time, I paid every bill we had. I took my mom to a nice dinner. Nothing fancy, but she ordered whatever she wanted without looking at the prices. I saw her smile in a way I hadn't seen since before we lost the apartment. That alone made me feel like maybe this wasn't the worst decision. Pretty soon I had my own place. A small studio with a balcony, white walls, and actual hot water that didn't run out. I bought clothes that made me look like I belonged in those hotels. Nice bags, better shoes. Clients started flying me out. One guy took me to Belgrade for the weekend. I remember sitting in business class thinking, "Holy shit, this is really happening." The flight attendant called me ma'am. I had to stop myself from laughing. There were these moments where I'd catch myself in a mirror at some rooftop bar or in a hotel lobby and think, I can't believe this is my life now. Fancy dinners where the bill was more than my old monthly salary. Gifts, perfume, jewelry, even a watch once. I went to private parties where people talked about yachts and property in Dubai like it was normal conversation. I overheard a guy casually mention moving millions around to avoid taxes. Another told me stories about politicians I'd seen on TV. It all made me feel like I was seeing behind the curtain. Some nights were actually fun. Good food, interesting stories, guys who wanted to talk about their problems. I got good at listening. Other nights were just weird. One client paid me to just sit in his hotel room and watch movies with him because he hated being alone. Another wanted me to pretend we were on a first date in front of his friends at a restaurant. I learned the rules quick. Laugh at the jokes, ask questions, never push back too hard. The lifestyle crept in. I started dressing better every day, not just for work. I got used to nice sheets and room service. The envelopes got thicker when I traveled. I was making in a week what I used to make in months. I told myself I was saving most of it for my big move abroad. In reality, I was spending more than I wanted to keep up, but it felt worth it. For the first time, I wasn't scared of winter coming. After a while, the two worlds stopped feeling separate. Waking up in a luxury hotel stopped being exciting and just became Tuesday. The lies to my mom got smoother. The boundaries I said I'd never cross moved without me really noticing. I'd stay longer than I planned. I'd agree to things that made me uncomfortable because the money was so good. It all started to feel normal. That was probably the most dangerous part. The first year wasn't so bad. I still felt like I was in control, like I was using the money to build something. But slowly, without me really noticing, the life started using me. Clients got more demanding. One guy in his 50s wanted me to call him daddy the whole night and listen to him complain about his wife for hours. Another expected me to remember every little detail from our last meeting, like we were actually dating. I learned to read people fast, the tone of a text, the way they looked at me when I walked in. I got good at pretending, smiling when I wanted to leave, laughing at jokes that weren't funny. I started living at night. I'd sleep until 3 or 4 in the afternoon, then get ready for whatever was booked. My mom thought I had a job at a late-night tourist bar. I made up so many stories I had to write them down so I wouldn't forget what I told her. Birthdays got missed. Holidays, too. One Christmas, I was in a hotel in Tirana instead of home with my mom. I sent her money and said I was working. The guilt sat in my stomach for days, but I pushed it down. Old friends drifted away. I canceled plans so many times they stopped inviting me. When I did see them, I couldn't really talk about my life. I'd make up stuff about working with rich tourists, event planning, whatever sounded believable. The lies got automatic. I'd delete messages every night, clear my call history, keep 2 phones sometimes. I started carrying a lot of cash because some clients didn't like cards. I caught myself checking hotel exits and memorizing room numbers without thinking about it. There were all kinds of men. Some were decent. This Italian businessman, the one who would later change everything, was polite and actually interesting. We talked about real things. He treated me like a person. But others were cold. One guy barely spoke to me the whole time, just used me and then scrolled on his phone afterward. Another got mad when I wouldn't stay the full night even though we agreed on the time. He didn't yell, but the way he looked at me made my skin crawl. I still took the money. I always took the money. The weird stuff added up. A client once paid me just to sit silently in his suite while he drank whiskey and stared at the wall. Another wanted me to wear a specific dress he bought and act like his secretary during a dinner meeting. I overheard conversations about things that made me realize how dirty the world really is. Bribes, affairs, people using each other. After a while, I stopped being shocked. I'd just nod and pour another drink. My body started feeling like it belonged to other people. I got really good at being numb. I'd zone out during the intimate parts, thinking about what I was going to eat later or how much I'd made that week. Expensive hotels stopped feeling special. Room service, nice views, soft sheets, it all blurred together. I forgot what day of the week it was half the time. My studio apartment got messy because I was barely there. I'd come home, shower, and crash. I stopped dreaming about being a flight attendant. That version of me felt like someone else. The girl who wanted to travel the world honestly, she was gone. I replaced her with someone who could smile on command, who knew how to make a man feel important, who could shut down her feelings when she needed to. I made excuses for things I used to think were unacceptable. It's just for now. Other girls have it worse. I'm still going to leave soon. Almost 3 years in, I barely recognized myself. I looked in the mirror one morning after a long trip and realized I hadn't had a real conversation with anyone who wasn't paying me in months. My mom was worried but didn't know why. I'd gained weight from all the drinking and irregular meals. My skin looked tired no matter how much makeup I put on. The scariest part was how normal it all felt. I'd get a cancellation and feel relieved instead of disappointed. I'd see a new booking and automatically start planning what story I'd tell my mom. The fear of going back to the old life, cleaning rooms, counting every euro, was stronger than the shame. I remember sitting on the balcony of my studio one quiet afternoon, smoking a cigarette I didn't even like, watching tourists laugh down below. I thought, this is just my life now. Not forever, I told myself, But deep down, I wasn't sure anymore. The girl who wanted to escape had escaped into something else entirely. I'd been seeing Marco for almost 4 months outside of work. He was different. Italian, in his late 40s, ran his own business. He was kind, paid attention, asked about my real life. We'd meet in different cities, have real dates. For the first time in years, I felt like someone was seeing me, not just the girl they paid for. I started falling for him hard. I ignored all the warning signs that this could blow up. One night in a hotel in Dubrovnik, we were having dinner in the room. Everything felt good. We were laughing. He was telling me about his week. I don't know why I chose that moment, but the guilt had been eating at me for weeks. I couldn't keep lying to him. I put my fork down and said it. I need to tell you something. The way we met, it wasn't by chance. I was working as an escort. The room went quiet. His face changed, not angry at first, more like confused, then disappointed. He asked questions. How long? How many? I told him the truth, or most of it. The longer I talked, the smaller I felt. He kept rubbing his forehead, looking at the floor. I could see him putting the pieces together. All the times I was vague about my schedule, the late nights, the things I wouldn't talk about. He wasn't cruel about it. That almost made it worse. He said he cared about me. He said he saw something real in me. But then came the words that hit like a slap. I can't do this with you if you're still in that life, Tija. I won't share you. If you want to be with me, you have to stop. Completely. Now. Or we end this. I sat there frozen. Part of me had hoped he'd understand, maybe help me get out. Instead, it felt like an ultimatum. The man I was falling in love with was drawing a line, and I was on the wrong side of it. All the nice hotels, the money, the "I'm just doing this to get out" story. It all crashed down in that moment. I felt disgusting, cheap, like everything I'd built was fake. He didn't yell. He just looked tired, said he needed time to think. I left the hotel room that night feeling numb. The hallway lights were too bright. I took a taxi back to my place and sat on the floor of my studio for hours, staring at nothing. My phone was blowing up with other bookings I had lined up for the week. I didn't answer any of them. For the first time, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I couldn't pretend I was still in control. I couldn't go back to that world knowing there was someone who actually saw me as more than a transaction, and that I would lose him if I stayed. That night destroyed every excuse I had left. I knew if I kept going, I'd lose the only good thing that had come into my life in years. And I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. Quitting wasn't one big moment. It was 100 small ones that almost broke me. The first time I tried to stop, I lasted 6 days. The fear of money running out was too loud. I took one more booking and hated myself so much afterward that I threw up. Marco was patient but firm. He said he'd help me, but only if I was serious. I changed my number, deleted every message, every contact. I moved to a smaller place in another part of Budva so some of the old clients wouldn't find me easily. There were a couple of angry texts from numbers I didn't recognize. One guy I used to see regularly kept calling from different phones, offering more money, getting nasty when I didn't answer. It scared me. I blocked everything. The money dried up fast. I went from nice dinners to counting coins for groceries. I got a job at a small tourist agency, answering phones and booking excursions. The pay was nothing compared to what I was used to. I worked long hours with a smile while my head was a mess. I had panic attacks in the bathroom at work. Nightmares where I was back in hotel rooms and couldn't leave. I'd wake up sweating, checking the door lock 3 times. Marco helped a lot. He got me the agency job through a contact. He never threw my past in my face, but I could see it hurt him sometimes. That made the guilt worse. I went to therapy for a while, but it was hard to talk about everything. I still don't tell the whole story to anyone. My mom eventually found out bits and pieces. She cried. We don't talk about it much now. Rebuilding was slow and ugly. I lost the ability to trust people easily. Even with Marco, it took me forever to believe he really wanted me and not just some version of me. I had to learn how to have normal conversations again, how to fill my time without waiting for the next message. Ordinary life felt boring at first, quiet. I miss the adrenaline even though I hated admitting it. Some days I still do. It's been a few years now. I'm 26. I work full-time at the tourist agency. I help people plan their dream trips, the kind I used to fantasize about. Marco and I are still together. We're planning a wedding next spring, something small by the sea. He makes me feel safe in a way I never thought I'd have again. But even with him, there are days when the shame hits me hard. I still can't fully forgive myself for how long I stayed in that life. I lost so much time I could have spent studying, building something real. That regret follows me. I'm not the same girl who dreamed about being a flight attendant. Part of me will always carry what I did. The way I learned to shut down my feelings, the secrets, the way I still sometimes check my surroundings in public. I don't think those things ever completely go away, but I'm learning to live with them. I laugh more now. I have real friends again. I can look at my mom without feeling like I'm hiding a monster. If you're listening to this and you're in a dark place where you think there's no way out, I won't lie to you. It's brutal. It takes everything you have. But there is another side. It's not perfect, and it's not easy, but it's yours. I was looking for an easy way abroad, and I found it through the only person who made me come back to myself.